Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Photograph the Pacific Northwest. I'm John Peterson, and with me is Jack Graham. How you doing,
I
Jack?
always feel like Lyle Mays, Benthini's pianist who passed last year. Whenever he got
Yeah,
introduced, he always went like this.
yeah. He was excitable for sure. He was a
Great
good
player,
guy.
great
Well,
player.
hey, folks, today Jack and I are here to talk to you a little bit about this concept of a master class. Many of you have probably taken tours or workshops, which are two different versions of kind of the same thing. And what we want to talk about is Jack and I both offer something called a master class, which is really it's the same basic duration of a workshop, but we're really focused more on the cognitive and artistic aspects of photography, less on the technical and less on visiting as many locations as possible. And so this is really kind of a deep dive to unlock more creative juices and creative energy with folks. And we wanted to just kind of highlight a couple of things for you guys today, because the Pacific Northwest, it's got so many iconic locations, but it's also got so many incredible locations to do some really creative photographic things with. And
Yeah,
so, we're really excited about them.
yeah, and this kind of a concept, I think some other folks might be offering this, but it's not for everybody.
No,
I think you need to be at a certain level where we're not teaching basic photography. We're not teaching the relationship of aperture and shutter speed and ISO. We're not teaching you that what this dial does this and this dial does that. And oh, by the way, you need to shoot this a third under. You should already know that.
yes.
And this is a little more demanding, not physically, but probably cognitively. It's a little more demanding. I know that the way I run my event, I'm a little more direct when it comes to critiquing images. Not that you need to have a thicker skin, but we're
Be more
more
open to learning.
more open to learning. Um, we don't run around to 12 different locations like John says. Quite frequently, we'll go back to the same location 2, possibly 3 times. Come back, look at our images, go back again, look at again, go back again, and look at the quality improve.
Yes, for sure. For sure. So Jack, for your I know you've got one masterclass this year up at Rainier, and I've got one in the Palouse. Let's talk about Rainier is sold out for you, so
Rainier is sold
congratulations. But
out this year, but
what's going on at Rainier?
well, what goes on at Rainier, I run this class every year. It's always the first week of August, and I don't have the dates for next year. I mean, I do, but they're not up on my website yet. If anybody thinks they want to go, contact me for 2023. It'll be the first week of August. And we do that because that's springtime at Mount Rainier. The wildflowers.
Yeah, yeah, the 3 weeks of springtime.
Yeah. And then a month later, there's snow on the ground. So we're up there the first, for about 3.5 days, the first week of August. And, and we eat, sleep, and drink photography. They're long days. And we spend a lot of time really talking about the cognitive end of things and the thinking end of photography. John, if I could share my screen here for a
Yeah,
second,
please do.
I'll give you. Tell me if it's working here. I should have Lightroom up.
Yep,
Correct?
looks good.
We work. It's a small group. John and I both only work really with 5 people on these events. That way we can spend a lot of time both in the classroom and the field with you all. But we'll typically go back to a number of locations. This obviously is not, if this is about Rainier, we're in deep trouble. But these are just a number of images. John, I think you're in a couple of these that we did at the Oregon coast in one of these pretty advanced classes. I don't think we were calling it a master class then, but you could see this was at these images, and you can look at the metadata. This is over about a 2 or 3 hour period where we stayed in this one location, about a 50-yard end part of this beach down on the Oregon coast. This image here, as well as this image and this image and this image and this image, were all made in 3 different days on 3 different trips to the same. We put our tripods down in the same place and worked the atmosphere and the conditions, the light, and these I'm not showing these images for you to say, boy, that's a nice image. My point is that they're very, very different, and good or bad. This is the kind of thing we do. We go back and look, and we say, well, next time we go back, we're going to put that duck on the right-hand side because he's swimming to the left instead of on the wrong side. That's pretty basic, but we'll take images like this and we'll take them apart and talk about, what if we did this? What if we opened up that background a little bit more? And then when we went back, you may not be able to see on the screen, but this is opened up a little more, as is that. So, that's really kind of the gist of what I know you do and what I do in these advanced classes.
Yeah, it's really about unlocking some other creative potential and deep diving into images for what works and what doesn't. And it's really beyond it's beyond the basic mechanics of photography. And just to show you a few images, Jack, I run my masterclass up in the Palouse area during the harvest time. And, the Palouse is already challenging enough to photograph because many times there's not a really big identifiable subject. So you're dealing with textures, shapes, tonalities, light, and shadow. And how you bring these concepts together into a photograph is challenging, but immensely rewarding for me as a photographer and everybody that visits there. Yeah. And you and I run a workshop there up in the spring where we talk about these things during the workshop. During the harvest season, things get even more complicated as an artist because we have a wider range of tonality, from plowed fields to fields that aren't harvested yet to partially harvested fields. And then we also have these harvest lines that run through the fields. And I'll show you a couple of shots of those. That makes it even harder to bring together a real cohesive composition. And as an artist, that's what I find extremely rewarding. And so with my folks on my masterclass, we spend a lot of time working on these really sometimes intricate compositions where we're dealing with lights and darks and shadows and textures, tonalities and lines, and how you bring them together into a compelling photograph. I'll just run through a couple images. A lot of it's texture, shapes, and patterns. We start to develop our vision for these types of things. Instead of shooting a whole silo, we're just going to shoot an abstract. And this is about texture and tonality. Again, just a subset of an overall scene. Here's one talking about those harvest lines, right? Look at how much motion is in this photograph. These are the types of things that we'll work on during this masterclass.
Yeah, and where you put those lines in the image, especially that one predominant line from the middle down to the bottom, you move that one way or the other, you have a whole different story. And it doesn't mean it's wrong one way or the other. It's just a different
it's story. A different feel. It's a different story for sure. And so those are the things that we work on in the field and then talk about in the classroom. Really is a way to kind of open our vision and open our eyes to grow ourselves as artists.
But John, I know you don't just talk about them. I mean, it's a deep dive into
for sure
dive into things.
It's a very deep dive. How do we lights and shadows, right? How are those dispersed throughout the photograph? Does it make sense? How does it affect the visual weight and the balance of the image? Those types of things are really kind of complex topics that we dive into in these classes.
And we do this in a normal workshop, but we may not. We typically will have a bigger group,
Yep.
and B, we'll have more images to review, but we just don't have and this is I don't want to sound like I'm saying that our other workshops don't have the quality of photographer, but we really want people on these master classes who are fairly advanced in terms of
definitely proficient, for sure. For sure. But we'll talk about these things, kind of back to the original point. We'll talk about these things in the master class, but we may not go as deep during a normal workshop as we would during some of these classes. Lights and darks, lines, textures, shapes. Those are the concepts that we talk about, less about subjects. Delving off into extreme abstracts, right? This is all about tonality, lights and darks, and motion.
John, I had a group, I don't know if it was last year or the year before. And when we got to the location, I told them, I said, okay, folks, we're going to be here for half an hour and we're going to do this. And I only want you to take 6 frames. It wasn't really a happy time, but their 6 frames were almost every one of them was just killer. I mean, it was really good stuff. So this is the kind of thing we do, and it can get pretty demanding.
It can. How do you see things like this in the field? How do you construct a composition like this and see that in the field? And how do you deal with some of the technical aspects, advanced technical aspects? But really, this is about artistry, right?
It is.
Things like this, another take on it. But look at those predominant lines. Look at the lines running through that. How do you position those in the frame? Those are important things. And those are the types of things that we deal with, in this master class. Even just seeing just textures, repeating patterns. Again, looking beyond the subject, we're looking at pattern, texture, shape, and color. That's the one thing I love about the Palouse is, repeating patterns and light.
Well, it's all about patterns and textures.
It is. So, these things, these master classes, you and I do one a year, but we're looking to potentially do some more. And the Northwest is an incredible spot for this type of stuff. And so we're just really excited about it because I think, as instructors, Jack, you and I, it really pushes all of our buttons, in a good way. It gets us energetic and excited. And
I have to tell you, I learned a lot myself. So it's all good.
Yeah, it's a good thing. So,
yeah.
All right, folks. Well, there you have it. Just a quick little show and tell about this concept of master classes and how Jack and I apply it in our workshop offerings. So,
and please, whoever's watching us, subscribe, because we're going to be back with some other locations, really cool things to show you here in the Northwest.
Yep.
Over the next couple of weeks. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
All right. Thanks for watching, folks.
Talk to you later.